All right, cool. Hey everyone, my name is Quincy. I'm the Allies Committee Head of Women in Computing. We are all part of the Allies Committee, so super glad to be here today presenting on how to be a better ally. All right, so to start things off, this slide contains 18 women who were vital in the advancement of computing and technology. Their achievements go through a whole bunch of things. I can just name a few. That's spanning tree protocol, solving challenge information, solving the challenge with the routing problem and development of the internet, creating a new programming language, uh, and also creating the first programmable computer that was fully electronic. So without these women, we wouldn't be able to study a lot of these things today. And so I just want to ask, does anyone know any of these women on the slide? You just raise your hand and just call it out. That's okay. So here are the names of the women. Many of them have been forgotten in history. Their accomplishments, have been erased. And so, once men have gotten to this field, pretty much all their achievements and stuff were forced out. So it's very important to know who they are and everything that they achieved. And that's why it's very important to really know the history of women in computing. So, just to talk about us, Women in Computing, we are an all-inclusive organization which encourages professional development and advancement of women and all gender minorities in computing. You don't have to be a woman to be part of the organization. I am. You can be part of it as an ally. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. We can talk. And we provide professional leadership, mentorship, technical development, and a lot of opportunities while engaging in the community. We do a lot of things like this. I know we were at WCAGs last week, of course, and then before that we were at BRICAC and we did a presentation. And just about the Allies Committee, we're responsible for furthering the mission and goals of women computing, and going out here advocating and telling people what we're all about, and how to make RIT more inclusive, and just to teach people things for when they go into the industry. So if you have any more questions about this, you can definitely ask me about the Allies Committee, or you can ask Jamie, who is the logistics head of women computing.
Yeah, so here's a slide on just basically what is an ally, what makes it up. We've broken it down into four parts, meaning taking action, learning, listening, and yielding, which is really important in being an ally. So basically, sorry, so what are all of these things as an ally? So taking action as an ally is just sorry guys. But anyways, action and allyship is just the practice of learning and listening to all these people, listening to marginalized groups, and knowing what we can do to help them. Learning is actively researching on all the different histories and historical contemporary problems that are still a part of our workplace, part of what we do in computing, and how marginalized groups and underrepresented, or learning how we can help each other grow. And then listening is just being a part of the community and actually listening to what women and other marginalized groups are saying, so we can better act on those things or what they ask for. And then yielding is making a space for people, so knowing when to help and say, or it's been a while since I talked in front of people, so many people like this. But yielding is just being careful not to monopolize or overtake the space, which is really important. And then some of the examples of allies in the workplace we've broken down into these roles would be the sponsor, the champion, the amplifier, the advocate, the standard, the confidant, and the scholar. Obviously, these aren't terms you see you'll hear all over the place, but we kind of divided them and put a name to all of these roles so that you can better talk about them or reference what they actually do. Because it's important to put a name to the idea. So basically, a sponsor would be someone who puts you forward, with an influencer, puts you up for a job, or tells someone who can get you a job that you exist. So basically, just sponsoring you and making sure that you are heard. A champion and advocates for women, people of color, members of underrepresented groups, as keynote speakers and panelists, or just anywhere that you can be seen. They really champion you so that you are a part of everything and who you are. The amplifier is when someone proposes a good idea or repeats it to give everyone credit. And then the advocate is someone who offers colleagues of underrepresented groups to implement the people in their way. So that just means, like, sort of similar to a sponsor. I mean, they're all very similar, but the advocate would be like specifically connecting you with the job. And then the upstander was just someone who speaks up if they witness behavior. This can be, again, just something that you do in your regular day. Like, these are things that you've learned probably since you were kids. Like, just be there, don't be a bystander, really take action, and identify where you need to take action. The confidant listens and asks questions when someone describes the experiences they've had, so they know what everyone's going through, and they can help them with that, but they don't necessarily jump in with their own personal stories. They don't break apart what the other person is trying to tell them. They just listen. And then the scholar investigates and reads publications. Going back to that learning aspect of being an ally, you really need to do your own research so that you understand all the issues that underrepresented groups have gone through, and that you can help them. So some other parts of that would be just being a part of the scholar industry and actively taking action, practicing allyship, not just choosing it as an identity and sticking with the things that you know. It's just about constantly learning. And then just a real quick activity that we're going to do is a scenario. I'm going to give you a scenario, and then you guys are going to talk about it for like 3 minutes. So in this scenario, imagine that you're a first year in one of your CS1 or random first year level programming classes. You're working on a group project of some sort, and one student is being left out from the rest of the group. I hope that no one has experienced this, but anyways, they look uncomfortable. No one else in the group is talking to them or acknowledging them in any way, and often talking over their input. So I want you all to talk together, pick one of the ally roles that I mentioned earlier, and describe what one of those roles could do to make the situation better. And yeah, just take a few minutes. I will go back to the slide so that you can kind of discuss who would make this situation better for the person who isn't being included. Okay, so now we're just gonna see what you guys came up with. If anyone wants to raise their hand, maybe give an example, that would be awesome. Anything goes for this student who feels secluded. Yeah, over there.
So we were discussing possibly the amplifier, because I guess the individual who doesn't have, or maybe hasn't incorporated into his first, the amplifier can sort of, I guess, increase their volume so everyone else sees it.
Yeah, that's a great example, and that's exactly how to be an ally. Like, they are, the other groups could bring them in, could say, hey, this person over here is saying something, why don't we listen for a little bit? But yeah, that's awesome. And another hand?
Yeah, I said the amplifier or the upstander. I think you can both like amplifying just listening what someone else says and also still kind of get everything put someone you love. The upstander kind of makes the person like I guess talking over everyone else and be like, oh shit, like I'm in the wrong.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm just gonna go to the upstander again. But yeah, that's a perfect example. And you don't have to know all of these to do them. This was just us kind of pinpointing and saying, hey, these are things you can do. These are practices that you should always be using when you're in groups, when you're in the workplace, so that all these groups can be heard and be seen. But yeah, thank you so much.
So unconscious bias, we got a couple of different kinds. So affinity bias is when you are more prone to kind of take in people who are like you. So kind of people who have parallels to you, you're more likely to gravitate towards. Confirmation bias is when you stick with your initial gut reaction, and all of the evidence that you're kind of like piling up in your head is just kind of you're cherry picking which fits with that initial thought about someone. Conformity bias is when you're in a big group and you just kind of like go with whatever everybody else is saying. So it's kind of blending in with society, not really willing to speak up, form your own opinions. You kind of draw mostly from what other people say and maybe from what they're not saying, maybe from their actions. And you're not putting too much thought into that yourself, but just going based on mostly what other people are saying and doing. The contrast effect. So this is when instead of looking at people as individuals, you compare them to other people, but we're all our own people and we have our own qualities, both good and bad, and it's important to recognize a person as a person and not a person as compared to just someone else. And then gender bias is when you kind of look at people and have a preference more towards one gender over another. So the competence and likelihood dilemma. So this was a study done by, I believe, Harvard, where they gave a bunch of companies resumes that were exactly the same. All they did was change the name from Heidi to Howard. And as you can see, Howard is competent and want to work for him and really like him, whereas Heidi is competent, but you don't want to work for her and you don't really like her. So it's really just kind of interesting to see how much bias affects all of what we do. Bystander effect. So Ainsley kind of touched on this a little bit. It's when there are more people around, people are less likely to act. So it's kind of a thought process of, oh, there's more people here, it's not just on me to do something, but it is, please step up. So that's kind of a couple of things that you can do. Acknowledge, speak up, provide resources, and protect. So acknowledge, make sure you're saying, oh, I see this is happening, and that kind of blends in with speak up. I see this is happening, something needs to be done to correct it. Provide resources, so you can say, oh, reach out to a professor, oh, there's a couple of services on campus, and protect. So when people are put into these situations, it's kind of a little difficult and you feel stuck. So kind of having another person who can kind of be there standing up for you really does help kind of mentally break out of the situation you're in, so that you can kind of improve your standing. I think that was all for this slide. So intersectionality. So we are all parts of many different groups. Race, class, and gender are three of them I've got up here. And depending on how you fit into each of those separate categories, the conditions that you face are different from every single other person. So it's important to look at intersectionality so that you don't just kind of go to a general group, say like just race or just class, and just kind of say, this is what these people experience, because it's different because of intersectionality. So when you also have, this is the next slide. There we go. Why it's important. Avoid generalizations. So kind of looking at the privileges you have and maybe the difference in privileges of people of a specific group. You can distinguish, oh, it's not just, like, people are much more different than kind of these big generalizations, and it's important to recognize that and kind of treat them with respect regardless and help them where they need help. Because we all have privileges, maybe more than you realize, and it's important to check that. Obviously, listen and learn to the experiences people have, so you can learn a lot through doing that. Do research. So it's not the responsibility of people of a marginalized group to kind of tell you their experience. It's also on you to recognize, oh, hey, maybe I'm doing something a little weird. Somebody's given me like a, and do your own research. There's a lot of resources online for a bunch of different things, because there are people who like to speak out, but not everybody from a marginalized group is going to want to. Make space. So again, this is with being a an upstander, not just a bystander. So creating that space, fostering the time for people of marginalized groups to speak up, like here today, and also be mindful of language. You might not necessarily know where a term that you're using is coming from or its effect on someone, so paying attention to the specific wording that you're using is so important.
Okay, we have one last activity. So in your group, can you share one time you saw an unconscious bias or a bystander effect in real life? And like provide an example, talk about it, what someone could have done to be an ally in that example. And then at the end, if you have like any examples, you can share them. And also what role of intersectionality plays in society, and how do you navigate between various identities that you have or someone you know has. You can also share that as well. But I'll give you like 2 to 3 minutes to talk about that. Okay, we're gonna come back. Does anyone have an example that they would like to share? Okay, Quincy, do you want to share your example?
Yeah, sure. So I guess this is kind of a personal example, but a time where I saw unconscious bias was when a friend was talking to me. Well, was a friend, to say that. And I said like, oh yeah, I'm going to the WIC meeting tonight. He was like, oh, congrats on the transition. That was a little weird. So, and I talked to him about like, no, I'm part of it. I'm like an ally and stuff. I'm part of the allies committee. He was like, what is an ally? So, yeah, there's a reason why I'm not friends with that guy anymore. But what he could have done better was like be like, oh, what are you doing, Women in Computing? Or like, oh, what is it all about? Can you tell me more about the allies committee and stuff like that? Instead of like making assumptions that like, oh, I transitioned because I'm part of Women in Computing, or there's a lot of things that he could have done to be more of an ally in that situation. So that's just an example of unconscious bias. Just not being aware of like what you're actually doing and the impact that has on the other person.
Actually, kind of go off that. I talked a little bit about this, but I feel a lot of people like use this defense of because this, then that. Like it's not. Like that may have worked in the past, but I guess it's just important to kind of look like what you have doesn't necessarily mean you can't do it. So.
Exactly. No, that's a great. Exactly, that's a great point to bring up. Thank you. Glad you said that.
Okay, so just to recap the do's and don'ts of being an ally. So do listen, ask how you can help, accept criticism. I know sometimes it's hard. A lot of us usually start working on that, but just don't take anything too personally. Speak up when you hear biased language. Use inclusive language. Seek support from experienced allies. If you have any questions, Quincy is very experienced. And acknowledge intersectionality. The don'ts: don't expect another person to educate you on their identity. Don't apologize for the actions of your group. Don't expect credit for being an ally. And don't selectively support one group over another. There's a lot of marginalized groups out there, so just picking one and being like, I'm an ally for this one and nothing else, not a great idea.
I think so, yeah.
Do you guys have any questions?
Cool. Thank you so much. If you have any more questions, just let me know.